Hey guys, believe it or not, I am actually back to working on the Philco 60 finally. First two things I want to accomplish are to rebuild the power supply and to fix this coil. So on the power supply side, I have remounted the power transformer, got the rebuilt filter capacitors back in, have the bias resistor in. So what I need to do is rewire up this stuff. There's that resistor, there's two filter capacitors, power transformer, and 80 rectifier tube, which is down here. When I removed the power transformer, I disconnected all the leads, so I need to wire a lot of these back in, which I think will be fairly easy. The two go to the filament supplies on all these tubes, and the rest are all connected down right in this area here. Also need to remount one of those rebuilt capacitors. It's the line filter. It's the one I put a safety cap into, which is this guy. Have to refer to my diagrams to see exactly where it goes, but I know it's somewhere down in there. I'm going to stick with this control for now, but this is not an original. It's got a knurled shaft, whereas it should be one of these, which is slightly filed down on one side. It's not really a half moon, but it's not. It's certainly better than this, which somebody just like cut this in half. It's far more modern than the rest. It's got it's meant to be mounted on like a circuit board as well. It doesn't have solder lugs. It's got these straight metal tabs on it. I've been trying to locate an original, haven't yet, but I do have a 1 meg that is an original Philco that may work. It's supposed to be 350K, and it's combination volume control power switch. But as I say, this is what came with the radio, so I assume it was working in some manner, so I'll stick with that for now. As for this coil, if you recall in the earlier video when I ohmed it out, everything was okay except for this winding, which I guess is a very common problem. That is the winding for the shortwave section on the antenna, I believe, this guy. There originally was a plastic sleeve between the larger winding and that's really deteriorated. And somewhere in there's a break. I'm a little confused by this area too. Let's see if I can illustrate this a little better here. So here is one of the leads going to that winding, I think, or going to something. It leads up here and then it just kind of disappears into this gooey area here. I'm going to try, oh, and then there's another lead that comes off of that shortwave winding that also goes into that same gooey area. So I'm going to try to use some alcohol to break this down. I don't know if I can see exactly what's going on with that wire. It might just be that it's just going up here and it's just lying, it's just a kink of the wire, and then it resumes to wind around. I'll find out for sure when I get this off. I hope it is. In which case I will just remove this end, unwind the coil, clean out all this crud, put some kind of new insulating collar on there, and then rewind the coil. Here's the wire I'll be using to rewind it. I think I picked this up at a ham fest many years ago. Originally I was going to wind a Tesla coil with it. Never got around to doing that, but I'm glad I hung on to it because it's a really nice enameled wire, and I do believe it is exactly the same gauge as the original. Thanks to some helpful folks online, I've got I think all the diagrams I need as far as which lugs to connect this to and how many windings there are. So I don't think it'll be too bad. Antique Radio Forum member Matt has dealt with this problem before and supplied me with this great diagram. Comparing it to mine, I can clearly see that what looks like that strange kink in the winding is actually a notch in that plastic sleeve that has deteriorated. So this coil is going between pins 1 and 5 on the bottom here. And I can clearly see the wire coming off of pin 5 there, and then it goes up into that area, and then it gets lost in the goo. Well, from his diagram, I can see that's what's really happening. It comes off of pin 5, wraps around this notch, and then continues to wrap around. So I think I will go ahead and start unwinding it. I carefully cut the coil right here at pin 5, then started slowly unwinding it. And just like the diagram showed, it came off this pin, went around the notch, then went around and around. I got about 5 turns off when suddenly the wire fell free, so I think I found where the break is. Somewhere around in here. So there must be a little bit of wire left. It's kind of hard to see underneath the goo there, so I'll have to carefully probe around and try to find the remaining strand that's left, and then clean off this stuff and put some type of new insulating collar around and rewind it. It turned out there were actually 2 breaks in the wire. Got one long piece, there was a break, and about 1.5 inches, and another break, and that last stubby bit there going to pin 1. Originally there was a plastic collar insulating the shortwave coil from the secondary tapped coil here. To replicate that, I'm taking a piece of plastic packaging material like this, the vacuum formed plastic covers that are so common in packaging these days. So I've cut a thin strip here. To hold it on, I'm going to try just using a bit of shellac. It's kind of sticky and it dries quick. I already put a coat over this to protect it. So I'm going to dab a little bit of that on there, wrap this around. Once it sets up, I'll embed it a little bit better and then start wrapping the wire around it. Alright, that worked out quite well. It's a plastic collar embedded in some shellac, and then I wrapped about 7 turns around, just as indicated, and I even put a notch in the plastic collar like the original had and looped the wire around. So it starts here on that grounding lug and goes around about 7.5 turns, and then terminates on that lead. Just need to solder it on and trim off the excess. Then I will remount this and be sure to put the shields back on so those 2 coils do not get damaged while I continue working on the radio.